You know, being a family of 21 brothers, you have to imagine that some of the Primarchs didn't like each other. And I'm talking about family feuds and dislikes long before the whole Horus heresy thing. For example, everybody loved Horus. We talk about it all the time. Long before he fell to chaos, he was the perfect brother, perfect son, perfect in every way. So that's one out of the 21 brothers. But let's talk about the rest. In terms of brotherly love, we know for a fact that we had Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim closer than any other brother. And quite frankly, if they weren't brothers, I would probably have some questions. Another famous one we all know about is how Leman Russ felt about Magnus the Red, which may not have necessarily been just brimming with hatred, but rather that he wishes Magnus was more responsible. But then there's also the relationship with Leman Russ and Angron. Angron and Leman Russ kind of viewed each other both as dogs, but different kind of dogs, where Leman Russ looked at Angron as a dog without a leash, being rabid and crazy. Angron ironically looked at Leman Russ as nothing better than a slaved hound. Another brotherly relationship we're all familiar with, Rogal Dorn and Perturabo. Competitive brothers that both thought themselves superior over the other in every single way, but Rogal Dorn also looked down upon a few of his other brothers. Not exclusive to Rogal Dorn, but almost everybody was not a fan of Conrad Kurz, and Rogal also was not a fan of Alfarius and the way that he operated his tactics in war. Many of us may know the fact that Lorgar deeply resented Guilliman, and for understandable reasons, for all the events that happened at Monarchia. Even during these moments and after the events of Monarchia, Lorgar also believed that Guilliman resented Lorgar. But Lorgar would come to understand that wasn't the case at all, and Guilliman never bared any hatred for Lorgar, but rather just wasn't a fan of his zealot behavior. It wasn't until long during the Heresy and the Shadow Crusades where we would really understand when Guilliman would truly hate who Lorgar was and who he became. The Lion never necessarily had any particular close relationship with any of his brothers. He actually distanced himself, and in typical Lion fashion, he was very mistrusting of others. Ironically, one of the few times he chose to open up to one of his brothers was during the kickoff of the Horus Heresy, right before the Dropsite Massacre actually. And who did he choose to open up to? None other than Perturabo, which ended up backfiring because Perturabo ended up using the equipment that the Lion gave to him at the Dropsite Massacre against the Loyalists. Vulcan actually had a pretty good relationship with most of his brothers. The only one that he kind of kept mostly at arm's length was Conrad Kurz, and seeing how things turned out, it was probably the smarter decision. Sanguinius is another one that also had a great relationship with most of his brothers, even going so far as to make an effort to try and be as close to them as possible, or at the very least, attempting to see the best sides of them. Jagatai Khan was one of the brothers that had a very interesting relationship amongst all of them. Sadly, in his position, due to the lifestyle, the culture of the White Scars, and a lot of other things, he was kind of ostracized, held at an arm's length. Many people looked at him strangely. Mortarion's another one that had a strange relationship with most of his brothers, not being a fan of those that utilized the Librarius, and thinking himself superior than a lot of them. But overall, it was a chaotic family with brothers that held competitions to see which one was better than the other, and if I'm being honest, proving just exactly how dysfunctional they are, and it's no wonder that the Horus Heresy ever happened. If it wasn't going to be Horus, it was going to be someone else. But with that being said, thanks again Count Von Clout for the request, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Drop a comment if there's anything you guys want to hear about next, and as always, remember to follow for more.